Hey, how's it going? And welcome back to Consuming Cinema, a show about making and pairing food and drinks from popular movies and TV shows. This week, for a belated Thanksgiving episode, we are making a sea breeze with Turkey Marbella from Scent of a Woman. If you haven't seen Scent of a Woman, it's a 1992 Martin Brest remake of the 1972 Italian film Perfume di Donna, as well as the movie that earned Al Pacino his first and only Academy Award win. The movie follows a boarding prep school student named Charlie Sims, who, in looking for a part-time job for Thanksgiving weekend, takes a gig looking after a blind retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, Frank Slade. Frank unwittingly drags Charlie along with him to New York City for a weekend filled with dancing, unlicensed driving, fine dining, as well as some secret plans of Frank's own. But first, Frank brings Charlie to celebrate Thanksgiving in the suburbs, showing up uninvited to see his brother Willie, and immediately comments on Willie's wife's cooking.
Gretchen, I smell those prunes. We talking Turkey Marbella?
Yes, we are.
Woo!
After dinner, Frank gets in a spat with his nephew Randy, who tells us the story of how Frank lost his eyesight, involving a grenade juggling act and a specific cocktail.
His partner in the act was some captain.
Major Vincent Squires.
Yeah, before going on, they'd have themselves a locale breakfast. A screwdriver for Frank, Bloody Mary for his partner.
No, Vincent drank sea breezes.
And Colonel Slade had 4. To his partner's 1. He starts pulling the pins out. One grenade got away from him. Boom.
One that got away.
And after Frank puts Randy in a chokehold for calling Charlie Chucky, he gets in one last remark about the Turkey Marbella.
Gretchen, you outdid yourself. If you twist my arm hard enough, we're talking Turkey Marbella next year.
But before we start our turkey, we first have to start our Marbella brine, which is derived from a rather 80s dish called chicken Marbella. Our Marbella brine starts in a blender, to which we will add 1½ cups of pitted prunes, in addition to 3/4 cup of Castelvetrano olives, as well as 3/4 cup of Kalamata olives, followed by ½ cup of capers, in addition to 6 bay leaves, as well as 1/4 cup of dried oregano, followed by 1/4 cup of dried parsley, as well as 1/2 cup of red wine vinegar, in addition to 1/2 cup of olive oil, as well as an entire head of garlic, which I like to loosen up by putting all of the cloves in between 2 bowls and shaking it together, which makes the peeling process a heck of a lot easier. Then we're gonna add 1 cup of brown sugar, as well as a couple teaspoons of black pepper, and finally a teaspoon of salt. Then we're just going to blend this up and, just don't forget your blade like I did, or you'll find yourself having to pour the mix back into the blender later. And now blend this all together for real this time, and while this mix may not look all that appetizing to you at this point, I can assure you it smells and will taste amazing. Now it's time to spatchcock the turkey, which is a way of cutting down turkey cooking time considerably. For my turkey, I'm using a 12-pound butter ball, which you want to thaw completely before then patting it dry. Then we're going to turn the turkey on its belly.
I inverted the bird.
And cut out its spine using kitchen shears. All you need to do to spatchcock is find the turkey's spine, and then what you want to do is you want to work up along the sides of the spine with the shears, cutting all the way up where the neck once was, and then slicing it off completely. And to be honest, this is a pretty gruesome process, but you are left with this great spine that you can use to make stock or gravy. Also remove the giblet bag if you haven't already. Then we want to cut this piece of cartilage here, which will allow us to flatten out the breasts of the turkey. And then you want to flatten down the breasts, which I may not have done exactly right, by performing what feels like CPR on the bird. You want to hear the bones crack when you do, and I encourage you to make sure the turkey is as flat and even as possible before cooking. Once the turkey is all spatchcocked, we are going to cover it in our Marbella brine, reserving a tablespoon or so for a compound butter that we are going to make later. This Marbella brine is somewhat of a hybrid between a wet and a dry brine, but we are going to treat it more like a dry brine. Then we are going to brine this uncovered in a fridge at least overnight, but I did mine for 24 hours. Then, once our brined turkey is out of the fridge, we want to pat it completely dry and wipe off all of the brine. You want to avoid rinsing it in the sink, as that can be a sanitation disaster with poultry. And once the turkey is entirely free of the Marbella brine, into a roasting pan we are going to add 3 stalks of celery roughly chopped, as well as 1 roughly chopped carrot, 1 roughly chopped onion, as well as a couple of cups of white wine, or in my case I like to use vermouth, because as I mentioned in the last episode, it's shelf shelf-stable. Then we're gonna plop it on a rack, either over a sheet pan or over a roasting pan, and cover the entire thing in olive oil. We also want to tuck these wings underneath the bird at the start of cooking so they don't burn, and add a nice few cracks of pepper on top. Then you want to start roasting at 425 degrees for 30 minutes. Normally, this step would be at 450 degrees, but because of the sugars and herbs in our Marbella brine, I don't want to risk anything burning. I actually roasted for 20 minutes at 425 to start, but you should be good at 425 for 30 to start, before lowering the temperature to 350 to cook the rest of the way. And while our turkey is in the oven, we're going to make a compound butter, which we are going to use to baste the turkey with. To make the Marbella compound butter, we are going to add a tablespoon of the Marbella brine to some softened butter. I'm actually going to add a little bit more later, but I wanted to be conservative at first so nothing burned. And when our turkey's out of the oven, we're gonna do our first round of basting. But first, I'm gonna add some more aromatics to our roasting pan, including some lemons, as well as some rosemary, in addition to both types of olives, and of course, more prunes. We're also gonna add some of that compound butter to our roasting pan to mix in with all of those juices. Then we're gonna soak up some of those juices and baste the bird with them. You're gonna wanna baste every 20 minutes or so, but I got carried away and did it probably every 15. We will then let the turkey roast a bit more in the oven at 350 degrees, and for our subsequent rounds of basting, we'll brush our compound butter all over the turkey, whilst also basting with the juices below. You want to roast this turkey until the internal temp of the breasts is between 150 and 155, and the internal temp of the thighs is between 165 and 170. And since this was my first experience spatchcocking, I noticed one of my turkey thighs was cooking considerably slower than the other, so I simply propped up that turkey thigh with some lemons so that it would get more exposed to the heat above, and sure enough, it worked. And if you ever notice any parts of your turkey cooking faster than they should, just cover those parts in foil. I use the foil to cover the breasts, as well as the wings at one point, even at one point the thighs. And while your turkey finishes cooking, we can use this time to juice some of our grapefruits, which is going to be the crucial ingredient in our sea breeze. And once your turkey is all done and you're getting that 150 to 155 in the breasts and 165 to 170 in the thighs, it is now time to rest our turkey. Resting is a crucial part of the turkey. You want to rest this turkey under a tent of foil for at least 30 minutes, and in that time we can make our sea breeze. Our sea breeze is a drink that can be built directly in the glass, a Collins glass to be exact. Our sea breeze starts with 3 ounces of our grapefruit juice, as well as 1.5 ounces of vodka. This is actually my personal favorite brand of vodka, Russian Standard, which is budget friendly and really delicious. Then we're gonna fill this glass halfway up with ice before adding 3 ounces of cranberry juice, and then a little more ice to finish it off. And we'll garnish the drink with a little bit of grapefruit as well as a sprig of rosemary. And to plate today, we're going to do a bit more of a rustic presentation by just setting our turkey down on the cutting board. We are then going to garnish the turkey with some of our olives as well as some of those prunes, in addition to a few fresh sprigs of rosemary. And at long last, your sea breeze with Turkey Marbella is finally done. Now there's nothing left to do but to carve into this bad boy and give it a taste. Since I'm not super confident in my carving skills, I'm not going to carve up this entire turkey. But first, I'll start with my personal favorite part, the leg, which, is as good as any other turkey leg. The Marbella brine adds a sweeter note with those prunes than your typical turkey, but it's balanced out nicely with those salty, vinegary notes from the capers and the olives. And I'm also gonna have to try a little bit of this breast as well. The white meat is where the spatchcock really beats the conventional method, because this turkey breast was by far and away the juiciest, most tender turkey breast I have ever had for a Thanksgiving turkey. But how does this Turkey Marbella pair with the sea breeze? Well, the cranberry in the sea breeze pairs perfectly with the turkey, as it's evocative of the traditional Thanksgiving pairing of cranberry sauce. The sea breeze not only pairs perfectly with the Turkey Marbella, but I also think I may have discovered a new drink of choice. They're light, tart, refreshing, and if a sea breeze isn't your style, then just pour yourself a glass of John Daniels.
Don't you mean, Jack Daniels?
He may be Jack to you, son, but when you've known him as long as I have, that's a joke.
So it goes without saying that this particular pairing is most certainly worthy of 2 big thumbs up, as well as 1 big
Hoorah!
And before I go into my typical spiel, since it is the holiday season, please consider donating to a couple charities whose missions relate to some of the more serious themes of this movie: the National Federation of the Blind and/or the Semper Fi and America's Fund. Links for both I'll put below. happy holidays. If you like the channel, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Tell us what you'd like to see. Please leave any video suggestions in the comments below. Full recipes will be included in a link in the video description. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Consuming Cinema. And don't forget to join us next week when we make a pairing from Christmas Vacation. Thank you for watching.